So this would be broadcasting here. Okay, cool. So we'll pop out chat. We'll minimize this. All right. So, Charles, you ready to go? All right. Now I wanna make the pronunciation right. It's Marlborough or Marlborough? Malbauer, like Bauer skates. Malbauer. Okay, Charles Mulbauer, and we're gonna bring you up with CB Insights. Is that the introduction you want, or do you want a different company? Okay, sales coach at CB Insights. Okay, cool. So we're there. We're recording. Yesterday, I forgot to record. So thankfully, I was on YouTube Live, so that records it. So we're like that backup to the backup. So we're good here. So all right, we're ready. All right, James, here we go. We can start it right now. Hey everyone, Bryan Whittington with this episode of the Talent, Sales, and Scale Show. We have Charles Mulbauer, like the skates, hanging out with us. He comes to us from the sales trainer with CB Insights, and he has a unique perspective. All right, we talk about niching. We talk about getting focused on one key area, and really what Charles is focusing in on is all about the discovery. So that is a backdrop. Welcome, Charles. Yeah, the last time we were talking to Charles, he was trying to avoid a parking ticket in New York, and so he's now hanging out in his hat in the warm confines of his house, so we're all good here. Well, let's jump into this. I mean, the number one question that we always ask is this. I mean, CB Insights is doing some massively, incredibly cool stuff, bringing AI and all this insights into market analytics and knowing where we should invest. But you're doing sales training. I mean, it's sales training for the group. So why in the world should we listen to you on, discovery? Interesting. So a couple of things off of that. We have 100 people. Now, do they have multiple sales trainers for specific segments of the sales process, or are you it? Okay. Got it. And then my sense is if we're focused that much on discovery, your SDRs, do you couch that as inbound lead conversion into discovery, or are they also doing outbound demand generation? Okay, so you're bringing up a couple of key points here, right? There's nothing new under the sun, and there's a million different ways to do the proverbial skin the cat, right? So we can do this in multiple different ways. So let's talk about the SDR role, and let's make sure that we're talking same terminology here. So whenever I'm an SDR doing that exploratory discovery call, typically 15 minutes, 30 minutes kind of call there. Okay, and you're coaching them, and then you're also coaching the AEs on the deeper dive discovery call. Fair? Okay, so let's break these into different components because it's a much different way of doing discovery. So let's start with the SDR, and then we'll segment to the AE if you're okay with that. Okay, so now with the SDR, what are maybe some key components that we're doing here? So I'll ask this first to clarify that question. I'm guessing that you're not expecting them to pick up the phone, hello, right? And we're now on with the prospect. That initial conversation, just to be clear here, to make sure that we're on the same page, that's not discovery. That's initial conversation setting up an initial exploratory call. Am I right or wrong on that? Non-scheduled call. This is outbound demand generation or an inbound, or an inbound lead conversion. I'm reaching out for that initial conversation. Key lesson here. Now, couple of things, right? Because so many times, and how many times have we seen this? That SDR is like, "Yay, got somebody on the phone." The BDR, whatever you want to call them, "Yay, got someone on the phone," and then they start to sell on the phone. Now, I don't know about you. I have some ideas here, but your thoughts on that approach? Hey, somebody's alive and on the phone. Thank heavens, a 2.5, 3.5% that actually picks up. Yay! I'm gonna go right into a sales call, discovery call now. Good idea or bad idea? Yes. Why? Yeah, and a really curious thing, and I don't know if you found this, but in my time of doing this, what I discovered is if you try to have that conversation in the immediate conversation, or you try to have that exploratory call in that immediate conversation, the guard is up and they're trying to disqualify you that whole entire time because you interrupted them, and it's easier to disqualify you and discard you as opposed to whenever they have a scheduled in the calendar preset agenda. That is a different person than that same person is whenever you call them net cold or whenever they weren't expecting it. That's been my experience, but I'm not sure if you found the same. Right. Yeah, and again, I don't know if you found this too, Charles, but it seemed like we get that prospect who's engaged, right, on an inbound cold or an outbound cold call, an inbound lead conversion. They're engaged and they're asking questions. You're like, oh, I got a really good one. And then all of a sudden, they end the conversation like that because they just disqualified you. They're like an interrogator acting like the good cop, bad cop. They're the good cop. They interrogated and you go, nope, you just said the wrong thing. You are now disqualified. Whereas, it seems like on that discovery, that exploratory call, whenever we're in a scheduled conversation, they can dive down a little bit more deeply and they won't so quickly look to discard you. Again, I might be wrong. Maybe I was screwing something up, but that was what I found in trying to do the initial calls to set up this discovery. So align with what you've seen or found? Amen to that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now, pick this up, right? There's a couple of things that he's doing here. So, one, curiosity statement, right? Would it be a terrible idea getting that curiosity statement, diminishing those defensive walls? Two, hey, listen, my guess is you didn't have a call from Bryan Whittington today scheduled at 8:45. So, might I make this suggestion? So he takes the leadership, takes that Sherpa guiding role, knowing that you're an interruption, and really diffuses that them trying to disqualify you there. And the other piece that Charles said, if please take notice of this. If you're on that phone and that initial discovery, or excuse me, that initial conversation, whether inbound or outbound, if you're on that call for more than 8 minutes, you've just went from setting the discovery call to having the discovery call, and you are in peril of death, right? Death of that opportunity. So that's kind of the summary that I got. Did I catch that right, or did I pick those up? Yeah, so let's unpack that a little bit more. So here's the thing. A lot of people, and this, I don't care your role, I don't care your experience. There's very few people that love picking up the phone and talking to perfect strangers that maybe aren't so nice to them, right? So there's always that reluctancy to call, right? So let's just face it, prospecting is hard. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not, you just have to do it. Now, that said, keep in mind it's no longer what you can tell them, right? And because we don't love prospecting, what we love to do is show our genius, how great we are, and how wonderful our product or service is. So we give all of that information out, and we love to divulge all of that information. And I would really challenge people, and see if you agree with this or not, Charles. Anything that you would want to say to them, to your point, figure out how you can ask that in a question, because it's no longer the information that you give, it's the information that you extract from them to identify, is this a true alignment where you have a problem and I have the ideal solution for that problem. So it's not what you give, but the information you get in that questioning strategy. So let me just pause there and ask, is that aligned with what you're talking about to set up these discovery calls? Yeah, right. Yeah. Now, how much do you base those initial conversations that are going to lead to that discovery on different personalities and communication styles? On the cold call, or how you're handling that cold call, where you're taking that cold call to, based upon their communication style, meaning disc profile or something along those lines. Okay. Okay, and let me, and I did a really poor job in asking that question, then forgive me. So, no, 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 it's my fault. I didn't ask it correctly. So, what I meant by that is we're leading to a specific point, right? So, I'm leading to a discovery call. Or at the end of that discovery call, I'm leading to the next step in the sale in the buyer's journey, right? So we're always going to, I call it hashtag next step, or setting up those next opportunities or next steps. So in my experience, what I found is that if somebody's a little bit more guarded, more risk averse, I might have to stutter step before I can get that initial meeting and send them some information, allow them to pursue that. Now, a lot of people say, Whittington, you're a wimp. You just set the appointment. It seems like, though, that if I give them information, especially those high analytical types, they're going to need to see something, experience something, read it over to get that guarded fence down to be able to take that. So that's what I meant by do you take that those different personalities and determine whether to do a stutter step or go right to the appointment. Well, these are just the inbound, either inbound lead conversion or outbound demand generation. That topic right there. Right. There's some people that would, though, believe it or not. Yes. Right. Yeah. Correct, because it gets to that clarity, right? So, oh my gosh, my marketing team has a mountain of stuff that I could send you out of curiosity to make this more relevant for you. You know, what topic should I send you on blank, blank, or blank? And that still continues to qualify, and it helps them to identify what should be the natural next steps, because it might be a blow off, or it might be a legitimate, hey, I'm trying to find this out. So, okay, great. So we do all of that stuff, and then let's get to the topic of today then. We do all of that stuff, and then we jump into discovery. Now, let's talk pre-discovery. What type of planning should we do pre-discovery? I mean, what would you suggest your people do in anticipation of that discovery call? Right. Yeah, right. Got it. Okay. So do a little bit of research. And then how about once you're in the discovery call? Let's talk about hello, they're on the video now. Because usually this is going to be on a video. Gone are the days for the most part where you're going to at least, I mean, right now because of COVID, but I would really anticipate, and I'm curious on your thought here, Charles, that I would really anticipate in the future almost all exploratory discovery calls are likely going to be like this over video. So they jump on the line. How do we get that thing started? Right, right. No one's like Nick Capozzi. Well, actually, before you go down that path, there's probably a lot of people that don't know upfront contracts. So let's define in your world upfront contract. Yeah, and I think what yeah, and to tie back what you said a little bit earlier, you like to give them a roadmap. And if you do that, a good effective upfront contract, that's going to give them the roadmap on where we're heading so they're a lot more comfortable. So keep going. So we do our upfront contract and are there different components to it that you're using or talk to me a little bit more because I interrupted you with the definition. Go down that path again if you will. Okay, so let's hit that a little bit. So you hear the salesperson on the other line, right, going, "What? I'm going to tell them it's okay not to move forward? That's crazy. Everyone's just going to go, okay, and hang up or get off the line." What do you say to that person? Yeah, sorry. So I've heard it all. No, no, no. I hear it all the time, right? You tell the salesperson, hey, you can tell the prospect it's okay to say no, right? And that salesperson is go, what? Why in the world would I tell him to say no? Everybody will hang up and just get off the line. No way. What would you say to that person? Yeah, right. Yeah, so a line that I always use is if it's a no, if it's an NO, I want a KNOW as quickly as possible. So that transparency really allows us to do well there. Now, one of the things that the reasons that we talked about doing this podcast here, Charles, was to talk about how we can get more transparency in the discovery meeting. So it seems like an effect of whether you call it an upfront contract, and forgive me, Jordana, I can't remember what in the world you call your term of an upfront contract, or I call it hashtag next steps because we're always looking for the next steps. Whatever you want to call it, is that maybe the first step in establishing that transparency in the conversation? Got Got it. Okay, so now we've done an effective upfront contract. So that's the first step. So we do a little bit of rapport building, trust building, right? Creating that environment of trust, comfort, and credibility at a peer-to-peer level. Then we do this hashtag next steps, upfront contract, whatever Jordana says, and she's going to yell at me for not remembering it. See that? So we do that step, and then what? Okay. Right. Okay, got it. So, and I found the same exact thing. So on those high type A personalities, those high disc profiles, and a PI would be a type A. I don't know in some of these other assessments, but that really domineering type personality, or that really analytical, like a high C in disc or a high D in PI. This high level core competency and edu-cell, if you will, on that initial outbreak, couched with at the end of that. But I don't know if any of those are relevant, worth which ones that we should focus on first, and then we can go down into it there. Or you ask them, and I think the other thing that you said is, hey, can you paint for me a bit of a picture of how you do things today, so I can better understand it from your vantage point? Do I have those two right? Okay, got it. So then I do that. Depending on their personality, I do that high level core competency. Now, from can we hear yours? I mean, you're comfortable. What would it sound like in CB Insights? Very minimal. Just went on the website. Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. Got it. Yep. So you laid that out there. It asked for their feedback, and then you can go right into, and then you went right into, tell me a little bit about how you're structured today, how you're doing it today. So then it's right back on track. Okay, got it. And context is key. Relevance is key on this. So and I think that, and tell me if you think I'm wrong on this. I think we touched on this already, but it really goes to that personality style as to whether or not they need that core competency overview, or edu sell, or that really quick soundbite elevator pitch, if you will, before you can dive into it. Are you finding the same? Okay. Right. Okay, now my sense is, because we talked about breaking up between SDR and AE, all the same stuff, whether SDR or AE so far. I mean, the words might change a little bit, but this practice is going to be more or less the same no matter which one, correct? Okay, now let's jump to the SDR, the BDR on this initial 15, 30-minute discovery conversation, as opposed to maybe an AE that's going a little bit more deeply in the discovery. So let's talk about that. So we've done the upfront contract, we've done our EduSell, we've asked that opening question. Then what? I mean, what do we do next? Okay, and what are those three? Oh, those three. So how do you do it, right? So how do you do a problem question? Can you give me an example of that problem question? Putting you on the spot, man. Making you work today. Okay. Interesting. So those four steps are really context, insight, validate your insight, and ask relevant for you. Okay, interesting. Okay, I like that. Now, let's go to the person that says, you just ask a question. You're making this too complicated, Charles. Because you know you're going to hear it. You know people are out there saying it. Yeah, salespeople, exactly. Or even sales managers. It's huge, right? Yeah, so let's unpack that a little bit more. So it's curious, right? Whenever you ask a question that makes them think, the first question is, "Oh, that's a good question," and then whenever you dig down a little bit more deeply, they go, "That's a good question," and then whenever you're really making them think, it's almost inaudible. They're like, "Oh, that's a good question," right? They're talking to themselves at that point, and that's whenever you know that you have them, and you're no longer a salesperson at that point. You are a trusted advisor on the same side of the table, getting them to discover on their own that they have an issue that needs to be solved. In my sense, is that's how you drive. That's how you drive their motivation or their sense of urgency to get this thing solved. Is they woke up this morning. If you're a really good salesperson, you should be able to get somebody that didn't even realize that they've had a problem, get them to realize, holy cow, not only do I have a problem, but I am hurting horribly over this. I got to do something. Can you help me? And from the questions you ask, you are such a trusted advisor, building such a level of trust because of the great questions you've asked that home in on exactly the key issue to uncover the root cause problem. They're like, man, this person, they can really help me. And that's the way I view sales and really doing an effective discovery call. I mean, that seems to be what you're teaching. But again, I don't want to put my own confirmation bias on here, Charles. Yeah. Precisely. And see, and that's where we have to be experts on what we do to help that person on the other line, to help them to solve that problem, right? I love Ryan Reisert's line, solve the problem or go away, right? It's as simple as that. And the curious thing is, going back to that, touching on that upfront contract, if I can't help you, yet I introduce you to somebody who can, I am now, well, your best friend. And any new piece of business that I can help with in the future, I don't even need to sell you. You just come to me and say, "Hey, Whittington, I can do this now. Remember when you helped me?" And now you have the greatest advocate, greatest source of introductions for you known to humankind. So okay, so we're asking those questions. So hey, what do you do? How do you do it? Put some. We go to our context, insight, validate, relevance to you. We do that. Then what are we doing off of that? Because we're really going to go through, that's 15 minutes, half hour goes by in just a blank. So off of that, what do we do from there? Okay. You right? Yeah, how are you going to do that? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Well, and either way, you can dive down a little bit more deeply, but really what you're setting up is that next step, right? We have to start to go into that next step. So the key here is this. We only want to find, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but my sense is we only want to find that surface level. There's a valid problem that we can solve, and at least at a high level, we have this. We have a conceptual alignment at a high level that you have this problem, we can help with that. let's take it to the next step where we can dive down a little bit more deeply, problem solve it, and start to develop that solution if there is one. But that's going to take a little bit more time. We've only scheduled 15 minutes, 30 minutes. So really it's going to be for that next conversation. I'll bring in another a subject matter expert, or you might have some other people involved with that. Would that be a terrible idea, or does that seem like a logical next step? And I think the way that you couched it there, Charles, is you are doing embedded commands, right? So if we think of NLP, that neural linguistic programming, we've added some embedded commands. Let's do this. Let me make the suggestion. So I'm asking all of the questions throughout, but then I'm making commands to say, hey, follow me. We need to get them to do a behavior change. Follow me. This is the way to the path of solution. So that was kind of what I'm taking from you on that one. I don't know if I missed that, though. Yep. Okay. Yep. So whenever we do that embedded command, or whenever we say, a good rule of thumb, and I have to be super intentional about this, a good rule of thumb is anything that you want to say, ask it in a question. So even if you say, hey, would that be okay with you? Or does that make, was I clear in how I said that? Or I don't know, is that a horrible idea, right? So whether you take it to a positive or a negative, couching it a question, I think is really rather quite good. So son of a gun, time is clocking down here. So quick. How much of a difference would there be based upon what we had, this outline that we just laid out, from an SDR, BDR versus an AE? I mean, too much of a difference? Yeah. So if we look at just that exploratory call or that discovery call, it's going to be the same, but then that AE has to move from opportunity identification to pipeline management, and that's where you have to continue with your questioning strategies, leveraging your hashtag next steps, upfront contracts, whatever Jordana calls it, so we can keep picking on her. So it's moving that along and making sure that we're mutually creating this solution. Is that, I'm guessing, that kind of the path that you take? Okay, got it. So let's rapid fire these questions. And Marco, you've been kind enough to be on Clubhouse with us, so we'll end this. And I don't know if Charles has any more time. We can answer any questions that you might have at the end of this. So let's rapid fire this. So what's one of the biggest challenges that you've seen SDRs, BDRs, even the AEs make on discovery calls that we can learn from them so we don't have that same battle scar that maybe they picked up? Yeah, and really encourage you from a practical standpoint to do exactly what Charles said is ask the question, then ask the second question, and ask the third question to yourself, right? You call it 5 whys or whatever you want. What you're really looking to do is ask a question that really gets them to think. Something along the lines of, hey, looking at your sales team today, knowing what you know now, how many of those would you rehire? That'll stop them cold, right? So it's that depth of level that's really going to make them sit back and think. So getting down deeply into that question, that's a really great one. Okay, now a hack for either hiring talent, sales, or scaling the business. What's one hack that you can give us in around one of those three areas: talent, sales, or how to scale the business? I got it. Now, and I love that. That role play, that simulation is vitally important, because if they say things like, "Well, I would do this," no, don't tell me what you would do. Let's do it, because how they do it will absolutely show you what they'll do. And if they say, well, I'm not really good at role play, they're really not good at sales then. So really watch that. I love that one. All right, resources that you might recommend: books, podcasts, guides that we should check out so we can be as smart on discovery calls as you are. Hmm. Yeah, and that's the beauty, right? The hardcore principles don't change. And it goes to your earlier point at the very beginning of this. It's a communication, right? How do I communicate effectively to help influence and get the person what they want? If I'm authentic and genuine and trying to help them through effective communication and questioning strategies, we all win. So I love that. And Todd Capelli, right? I always want to because I screw his last name up with Nick on that transparency scale. He was on a couple of podcasts, and he'll be dropping this Saturday too. So really, really great stuff there. Yeah. So, hey, now what do you see coming down the pike? What are you worried about? What are you anticipating from future trends in sales, or how we're going to market? Yeah, so curious. So maybe how people end up into discovery, right? So I might be leveraging AI a little bit more, or have a little bit more insights as whenever I do jump on discovery. But discovery is discovery. These people have a problem, they don't know how to solve it, and they're really looking for you to do it. So that's I think really really well said. All right, so Charles, who should reach out to you? How should they do it? And why should people reach out to you, my friend? Awesome. Well, hey, this has been a great conversation, Charles. Love putting you on the spot. You were up to the game and gave some really really tactical advice. So I appreciate that. So hey, on behalf of Charles Mulbauer, like the skates, Bryan Whittington with the Talent Sales and Scale Show, get after it, have some fun, change some lives. Thanks, everyone.